It wasn't tennis, it was a revolution. How Eala broke all the records and transformed Abu Dhabi into Manila. It was not a tennis-like noise. It lacked the courteous, measured cheers that reverberate throughout Wimbledon's well-kept lawns as fans clap their wrists and sip champagne. It wasn't the sterile corporate hum of the US Open when the audience follows the script and advertisers grin from opulent boxes. No. This week's eruption from Zed Sports City in Abu Dhabi sounded nothing like a tennis match. It sounded like something much more powerful and primordial. It had a familiar sound. It sounded like a people discovering their voice thousands of miles away from their birthplace, combining all of their pride, rebellion, and longing into one unadulterated moment of delight. The stadium had changed from being a place for professional sports to something more significant and sacred long before the last point was played, and the scoreboard validated what the spectators already understood deep inside. There was the distinct L-tilt of Tagalog in every cheer. As though everyone in the spectators had a direct line to the girl on the court, every chant had a very intimate feel to it. It was instantly evident that this was about more than simply forehands and backhands, ranking points, or cash as 20-year-old Eala took to the blue hardcourt beneath the Abu Dhabi sky, racket in hand, flag on her chest. This had to do with being present. This was about a group that had been too long unseen, working in the background, sending money home and using their sacrifice and sweat to create nations. At last, they had someone to support them. It was a matter of pride that had been suppressed for many generations, obtaining authorization to yell all of a sudden. With the enthusiasm of a revolution, flags were flying. Emotion was exploding in the voices. In the aisles, strangers were hugging each other like relatives who had been separated for decades. Youngsters were lifted onto shoulders to watch history being made in real time. And a young woman from Quezon City was standing in the center of this emotional storm. She was just out of adolescence, bearing the aspirations and hopes of 110 million people worldwide. She was battling back from the verge of catastrophe, turning what ought to have been a typical professional tennis match into a momentous cultural event that will be discussed for years to come. Tennis is seen as an individual sport, the pinnacle of independence, where you are left on your own side of the net with no one to blame or save you. However, convey it to the thousands of Filipinos who made the United Arab Emirates an unbreakable stronghold of assistance. Express that to the supporters that literally backed up traffic around the venue, took time off work, and went from Dubai and Sharjah and all around the Emirates in hopes of seeing someone who resembled them, held their flag, and stood for opportunities they had been told were unattainable. In Abu Dhabi, Eala did more than simply play tennis. She asserted it. Declaring that Filipino brilliance was no longer coming, she put a flag in the sand. It was here. What transpired on that court in Abu Dhabi altered everything, even if the week finished with a challenging, weary travel to Doha and a challenging first-round exit at the Qatar Open. The story has changed irrevocably. She has evolved beyond being merely a promising junior making the move, a prospect, or someone to watch. One of the top 40 players in the world is Eala. And because it depicts the breaking of a ceiling that many believe to be made of concrete, that statement still seems unreal to type. We are dissecting the movement, the craziness, and Eala's utterly remarkable run in the Middle East today on Champions Tennis. You are in the correct place right now if you are passionate, grit-driven, and your heart races when you see underdogs overcome insurmountable odds. When discussing revolution, context is crucial, so let's set the stage correctly. The Mubadala Abu Dhabi Open falls within the vital middle tier of professional tennis since it is a WTA 500 event. It's not a little tournament, but it's also not a grand slam. There are plenty of players on the field that travel the world and hit yellow balls for a living, and the prize money and ranking points are big. This is a severe matter. Big names who have been in this business for years and don't give anything away for free, big money, and big stakes. The match between Eala and Alexandra Sasnovich will decide whether she went home early or farther in the tournament. At this point, Sasnovich is not at all easy. Furthermore, those who claim differently are ignorant with professional tennis. She is cunning, seasoned, and sly in a way that only veterans can be. On a tennis court, she is aware of every tactic, trend, and strategy to make you uneasy. She is the kind of player who doesn't beat herself, who grinds you down both psychologically and physically until you make the mistake first, and who makes you earn every point. It appeared as though Sasnovich was going to ruin the celebration, quiet the crowd, and send everyone home dissatisfied for a bit, whether you were watching from the stands or keeping up with the live scores on your phone. Since what transpired in the third set contradicted statistics, logic, and everything we believe to be true about professional tennis, we must discuss it. If you were using your app to track the live scores and were sitting at work or home, refreshing every 30 seconds, you most likely got to the point where you wanted to stop using it completely since it was getting too unpleasant to watch. I began to scratch back, and that's exactly what I mean when I say clawing. It had nothing easy or pretty about it. She worked diligently through each point as though her life depended on it, one game at a time. The body language changed after another game. Like a tidal wave, the momentum, that unseen force that influences tennis matches just as much as skill, started to swing in the opposite direction. Through the TV, you could feel it in the stadium. If you watched from a distance, you could see that something basic was shifting. The place exploded when she leveled it at 4 games all. People were hugging one another, people were in tears. It was no longer about tennis. This had to do with belief, with not accepting the story that had been written for you. A tiebreak was imposed by her, and the raw heart was on full display in that tiebreak. Technical analysis is completely ignored. When everything is on the line and there is no room for error, it then comes down to who wants it more, who can manage the pressure, and who has the mental toughness to perform. The stadium did more than cheer when Sasnovich's last ball went out, signaling the end of the game. People were yelling, jumping, and waving flags so frantically that they may have taken to the air. Seismographs most likely recorded the noise at 2 sets to 6, 6 games to 4, and 7 games to 6. We'll remember those figures. It wasn't merely another victory on the scoreboard, one that is noted in the official records and then forgotten the following week. It was a declaration. Alex Eala was telling the tennis world that she belonged in these situations and that she possesses the mental monster gene that distinguishes champions from journeymen and good players from great ones. As she caught her breath and processed what had just transpired, she later said it herself during her news conference. She has previously performed in large stadiums and during Grand Slams, when tens of thousands of people may fit in the venue and television cameras record every second for viewers in the millions. But this was different, she replied. She talked about how surprising and overwhelming the support was, how she sensed that everyone in the stands was rooting for her to win. How when her own reserves ran out, their vitality became hers. However, I want to push back against the word unexpected a bit, so let's be absolutely honest here. Is it truly surprising? Is it really shocking that Filipinos would turn out and be compelled to assist one of their own in making history? The Filipino diaspora, a vast population dispersed throughout all continents who have strong ties to both their motherland and one another, is undoubtedly one of the most potent forces on Earth. Fans were lined up around the block before daybreak at the Australian Open earlier this year, creating such a crowd that the tournament officials had to add more security. All of that for the sole purpose of watching her play on a side court, not even in a big stadium feature match. And now they have a hero to support in the United Arab Emirates, where 700,000 Filipinos reside and work, accounting for a sizable portion of the population. Someone playing a sport at the top level in the world. The spark, the point at which potential became a reality, was the match versus Sasnovich. It demonstrated that Eala has the mental fortitude needed to contend with anyone on the earth. A forehand may be taught, its biomechanics broken down, and practiced 10,000 times until muscle memory takes control. You can practice the serve, the shoulder rotation, the wrist snap, and the ball toss. The courage to declare, "Not today, not like this, we're going to find a way." In a decisive set against a seasoned opponent across the net, and with the weight of a country on your shoulders, is something that cannot be taught. Character is that. That's what separates the person who wins a tournament from the person who just watches it on TV. However, the story doesn't finish with that amazing comeback, since the performance's repercussions during the entire week in Abu Dhabi went far beyond the momentary triumph. Since numbers don't lie, we must now discuss the numbers in detail. Emotion and narrative do not ensnare numbers. Simply put, numbers show you exactly where you are in your sport's worldwide hierarchy. Alex Eala was ranked 187th in the world over a year ago. Give it some time to sink in. 187, that hardly makes it into the top 200, battling it out at little competitions in an attempt to earn a spot at somewhat larger ones, battling it out on the challenger circuit where earnings hardly cover costs, and each game seems to be a vote on the viability of this idea. Even though she had made remarkable progress to reach about number 50 in the beginning of 2026, only a few weeks earlier, she still felt like an outsider at the elite level. Alex is currently in the top 40 in the world as of Monday morning, when the WTA rankings were formally revised to take into account the Abu Dhabi results. Take your time reading that again and allow the enormity to sink in. In 1 week, she made 5 huge leaps. Hours of labor, one match, and vanquished opponents are represented by each position. She has broken ceilings that were established decades ago and that many people believed were permanent features of the scene, making her the undisputed top-ranked Filipino player in WTA history. This is more than just a personal triumph. This is the writing of the nation's history in real time. Filipino tennis, which people knew existed but were unable to identify any players or provide any noteworthy outcomes, was a footnote prior to Alex. A Filipino lady who is currently ranked in the top 40 in the world competes against Olympic medalists and Grand Slam champions week after week, demonstrating that talent and commitment can come from anywhere. Therefore, we must recognize that she wasn't alone in Abu Dhabi since, despite its sense of isolation, tennis can be a collaborative sport. Her doubles partner, Janice Jin of Indonesia, deserves a huge, well-deserved shout-out. Together, these two were electrifying. Their games are a wonderful match, and their intensity is mutually reinforcing. At a 500-level event, when the doubles fields are packed with experts and couples that have been playing together for years, they achieved a remarkable feat by making it all the way to the doubles draw semifinals. It's important for Southeast Asian tennis overall, showing that this area, which is frequently disregarded when talking about the growth of tennis, is fast gaining ground. As they watch, young players in Manila, Jakarta, and Bangkok come to understand that there is a way to succeed, that it is feasible, and that they do not need to go to Europe or America in order to achieve the greatest levels. Eala is leading the charge in this endeavor, representing not only the Philippines but a whole region that is desperate for representation. However, as anyone who follows professional tennis knows well, the sport's highs are extremely euphoric, while its lows are abrupt, violent, and swift. Because our goal at Champions Tennis is to honestly analyze the losses and celebrate the victories in order to present a full picture rather than merely emphasizing the positive, we must maintain objectivity. Alex had to pack her bags, go to the airport, and board a flight to Doha for the Qatar Open right after that mental, emotional, and physical roller coaster in Abu Dhabi. This is a huge WTA 1 event, the top level behind the Grand Slams, with millions of dollars in prize money and fierce competition. You can't ease into a 1,000. The first round draw isn't gentle enough for you to become comfortable and develop your rhythm. You are competing for your life against players who have been in the top 20 for years from the first bell. And yesterday, Alex was clearly and unmistakably overcome by the weariness and the cumulative emotional and physical toll of the past week. She took on Teresa Valentova, a Czech prodigy who is only 18 years old, but already talented, hungry, and fearless. To be honest, I had a difficult day at work. On a day like that, nothing really works, and your body doesn't react the way you want it to. She lost the opening round, losing the first set 6-7 and the second set 1-6. Yes, I am aware, it is foul-smelling. Going out in the first round of a 1,000 tournament feels like having a bucket of icy water dropped over your head after Abu Dhabi's great high, after reaching the top 40, and after their comeback against Sasnovich, which will be relived in Filipino homes for years. However, we must consider the environment, because when assessing performance, context is crucial. The first set was a full-scale conflict. It was competitive back and forth because it ended in a tiebreak.